artists that have come through the festival that have had a lot of success with IFC, and Bunk premiering on the network last year being chief among them. Talk a little bit about when somebody brings you a new project, the sort of the first and initial stage of development, working with an executive like yourself. What sort of that experience is like, if we can encapsulate that a little bit?
Sure, it's different in every instance. You know, Bunk, which was a pilot that we saw at the New York TV Festival when it was still called Pointless, was pretty fully formed. Kurt Braunohler was already in place as the host. The creators were very, very talented, and it really sort of mocked the conventions of a game show. So we really just worked with them on kind of nailing down the format and mining every sort of possible nook and cranny of that format for comedy. Sometimes people come in with just a pitch, and you know, if they're talented writers, and we've seen examples of their writing, you know, we talk through the pitch. I have a very, I think, conversational tendency in pitches where I like things to be more of a conversation than people come in and sort of put on a show for us. There have been a lot of people who've come in that we were just artists that we were really interested in, and suddenly a conversation about themselves led to a, well, that's a really interesting area, and suddenly I get, you know, super nosy and kind of, I don't know.
Oh, I know about that, yeah, sure.
But like a therapist, you know, it's like I want to dig in deep with people and sort of, you know, mine their truth for where the stuff of a show could be. So it's always different, but you know, I think it should be, because that's a very, to me, a very organic process. So it can start with just buying a script. In some cases, and in rare cases where it's something we're not only really excited about, but there's a feeling of, you just kind of gotta see this. Like with Portlandia, we'd seen the videos that Fred and Carrie made, but to really create the format of the show and see the flow of the show, we sort of felt like, well, let's just go right to making a sort of a pilot presentation and shoot this thing and see what the show itself feels like.
And so if there are writers or performers in the room tonight that you know, even stepping back maybe one step before that have the opportunity to come in and pitch you and the team at IFC, are there common mistakes that are made, you know, in the first, you know, let's say it's the first meeting or what have you, or is there advice you could give to the folks in the audience tonight on how to sort of get the most out of that first meeting, even if it's not a spot-on project for IFC? You know, what's the best way to sort of prep for that and to have the best meeting with you that they can?
Well, I mean, I think generically, it's good to know who you're pitching to. You know, it's good to know what is the network doing. Like, I still get calls all the time for people who say, so are you guys looking for nonfiction? Well, we haven't developed any nonfiction in the last 2 years. So I think it's good to know, like, what is that buyer looking for? Know their shows, know the voice of the network. And then for me specifically, like I say, if someone comes in and they're doing more talking than listening, they're probably not going to get the most out of the process, because I think a buyer, given the opportunity, will not only tell you what they're looking for, but in sort of best case scenario, tell you kind of how this show could be tailored to suit them. Now, at the same time, I will also tell you this. I also don't like to potchkey too much with people's work, and I feel like I always want to have an artist make the best version and the truest version of what their vision is. And if we're not the right place for that, then we shouldn't do it, because I think the worst experience for anybody in development, and especially if it's your first development experience, is to go in there with something that's super, super clear to you and have it get diluted through the process and then feel like you're lost somewhere amidst that process, and suddenly it's like, I don't even know what this show is anymore. I think that's, you know, always a frustrating kind of road to find yourself on.
And just for the Gentiles, the definition of potski.
Potchki.
Potski, I'm sorry. Of course I got that wrong.
Fuck with.
Yes, all right. And with that, we'll open it to questions. Does anybody have a question? Yes.
I think that the internet has become a great farm system for ideas, and I encourage people always make stuff. There's no reason not to make stuff. Frankly, it's one of the things I love about the New York TV Festival is you get to see a fully realized version, even if it's a scaled down version of somebody's vision. So yeah, I mean, we did, you know, the Onion News Network that came from what the Onion was doing online. Like I say, Portlandia started with what Fred and Carrie were doing as Thunder Ant. You know, Comedy Bang Bang came from Scott Aukerman's podcast. So yeah, we look across all media for talented people who are doing great work. So yeah, people just send us links all the time, and you know, if we see something that really catches our eye, where there's like, you know, really original voices out there, we'll meet with people even on a general basis, just because, you know, we love being able to identify emerging talent. Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to make a statement. That Portlandia episode where they basically were so addicted to Battlestar Galactica to the point where they chased down Edward James Olmos because they do a final script. It's just genius. And that should have gotten an Emmy nomination.
It actually did get a couple of Emmy nominations, but we didn't win. We got a WGA award, and we got the Peabody Award, so that ain't nothing, but thank you very much. I'm especially fond of that episode too, the Battlestar Galactica episode.
Yeah, in the back.
Hi. Is there a general rule of thumb when preparing material of a political nature, of a satirical nature? How's that received by a network such as ICE?
Political satire is a very difficult area to try and undertake, largely because there's so much of it, and I feel like it's a very timely and often perishable form, like the late night shows and the Daily Show and SNL. Like, trying to do political satire is sometimes, and not that I would discourage you from doing it, I just think because it's a crowded field and because it can be so challenging, you just know that you're kind of taking on something that is going to be hard to conquer, you know, from a sort of ground level, you know, position. So do you mean like a narrative political satire or sketch? I mean, honestly, it's sort of kind of what I was saying before, is if you're doing things that are timely and topical, the immediacy of like making something and putting it up online and then getting out examples of that will hopefully get you noticed. And you ultimately can put together a sketch packet that can get you a job on one of those shows, or you can have such an original voice that ultimately, I do feel somewhat as crowded as the field is, that it's kind of a meritocracy, and if you're doing great work, there are enough people who are looking for great work that people will find you if you just keep doing it. I don't know if that's a super great answer, but it's just how I feel.
We have time for one more question, if there. Oh yeah.
Do you take pitches for TV shows more seriously if they're represented by agencies or they have an entertainment lawyer, or do you treat everybody who comes in with an idea?
Well, they have to have representation just honestly because of, you know, we're, you know, part of a big company, and we really can't take unsolicited pitches. So yeah, you know, representation is oftentimes the only way to get in the door, unless you're coming through, you know, someplace like the New York TV Festival. So, but there, you know, there are lots of ways to get seen, and you know, if, like I say, you're making stuff and you send us a link, you know, we'll look at links, but we really can't hear unsolicited pitches.
Awesome. Well, guys, that's it. Let's give a big round of applause for Dan. brother. And people from the festival will be around afterwards to answer all your questions. Make pilots for IFC and VH1, and have a great night. Thank you, guys.